¿Qué onda, vatos? Thanks for tuning in to yet another video. Infamous here, San Jose, California. Absolutely beautiful day. We're already in mid-November, and I'm telling you guys, perfect riding season all year round. But let's get into the topic of today's ride. I'm going to be showing you guys how to ride your Harley Lowrider S or whatever motorcycle you got out there. I'm going to show you guys how to work the clutch and, you know, how to shift, stuff like that. You know, the basics of riding a motorcycle. But let's get into it, all right? Now, like always, you always want to make sure you're in the neutral, or you know that you're in the first or whatever gear you're in. So let's go ahead and, you know, turn the bike on. Now, if most motorcycles, they will have a neutral light, kind of like mine. So now you know that it's in neutral. Other than that, if that green light's not turned on, that means your clutch, that means it's in gear. So you want to hold down your clutch right over here in case that were to happen. Or other than that, the bike's going to jerk or it's going to not turn on, depending on what model you have. Some bikes, they will engage when you hit that on button. But other than that, if you saw that on my foot, I went ahead and I engaged it in the first gear. You always want to push down. For some reason on bikes, it's your first gear, neutral, then second, third, fourth, you know, and etc. So let's get going. All right. So let's get into the RPM or the sweet spot. I believe for Harley-Davidsons, you're looking at probably, like I mentioned, 2,000 to probably 4,000, depending on where you're at. If you're going uphill, you want to definitely shift at a higher RPM, mainly because, you know, you're working against gravity, you're working against the hill. So you want to shift at a higher RPM. If you don't do that, you are going to stall the bike, and you're going to be in a tricky situation. You are going to be in a bad place. Especially if there's traffic, especially if there's you know, other vehicles involved. You are going to have to, you know, figure it out when you're there. But let's see if we could practice some of that in the video, and then let's practice some of the shifting in this video as well. So I'm in neutral right now. As you can see, the light is green. You're going to go over here and grab your clutch, pull that in, and then you're going to push down on the shifter, and then you're just going to go ahead and just push that down. We're on neutral. If you want to, you know, practice that, you can, you know, grab the clutch, the clutch lever. Now you're in first gear. So as you can see, the light's now gone. You're no longer neutral. The bike's going to start to engage. All right, and then I know some bikes, some older bikes, you see how easy it is for this bike. I had a lot of bikes where mainly just Harley-Davidsons. I don't know if it needs primary change fluid or something like that. For some reason, it's just difficult to find a neutral on some of the bikes, older motorcycles. But rest assured, there is a neutral. I know my Sportster, it took me about a minute to kind of find it. I would always, you know, go up to the second gear, or, you know, go down to the first gear. Some bikes are just different, but rest assured, every motorcycle has a neutral, and they will have a light, most of them. So, all right, now we're in the first gear. Now, some bikes, depending on the type of motorcycle it is, some of them, they do engage on once you go into the friction zone. All right, you see that right there? My hand is not on the throttle over here. It's not. By me just releasing the clutch, the clutch, they start to engage with the motorcycle. Now, this type of system, most Harley-Davidsons, this is what they have. They have that friction where they start to engage. I believe this is the easiest method. You know, if you're starting out on a bike, this is probably the easiest one. I know some motorcycles, they don't have that friction, and it'll just die out on you. It'll stall, and it won't give you a heads up of, you know, where you're at. This one on the Harley-Davidsons, on the Lowrider S and Softails, like I said, most Harley-Davidsons, they do have this friction where it'll start to engage, and you have an idea of where it's at, or that will give you an idea of when you should start to give it some gas. So as you can see right here, by me giving it gas right here, there's no transfer of power. But once I put it in that friction zone right there, the bike starts to go. That's when you want to give it some gas, and then that's when you're going to start going. You see that right there? And I slowly ease off the clutch, and I give it some throttle, and then I start to engage. okay? So, you know, that's pretty much the basics. It's gonna be stuff that you're gonna have to get used to. Once you're already at, you know, 5 to 10 miles per hour, it's gonna be pretty easy. It's a piece of cake. You know, shifting between the other gears and everything else. I believe the most difficult part when you're starting out is that takeoff or the hill, which we're about to come up right now. I believe that's the most difficult part of learning how to ride a bike, or learning how to ride clutch, automobile, or motorcycle, either or. That's probably the most difficult, and it's the most nerve-wracking. I remember when I was starting out, I would be at lights and I'd be like, holy crap, am I gonna stall the bike here? Oh, please don't stall the bike. Please don't stall the bike. And then, you know, there'd be 5-6 cars behind me, and it's nerve-wracking. So let's just go ahead and pull over right here to the right. Now, this is sometimes you will get yourself in a place where you will have to stop on a hill, and this one's pretty steep. This is mainly on overpasses when you're probably going to work, or you're commuting. There's a few things you could do. You could give yourself a little bit of support with your legs. Put them back over here so you can kind of hold the bike in place. You could do that, but you know what? You might hurt yourself. Another thing to do, like I mentioned, is just feel that friction zone right there. The bike's already engaged. It's staying in place. Look at that. See, I have it where the bike's already engaging with the primary, with, you know, the whole system. It's already engaging on the bike. So you could be at a light. You don't have to go into neutral. You don't have to do anything. You just hold it right here and wait for that light to turn green, and you're perfectly safe. The bike's not rolling back, and it's not stalling out. So once you kind of feel that, just feel it out. It's something that every bike, I believe, is different. You're just gonna have to get a feel for it, and then once you have it in that friction zone where it's already engaging, the bike's not rolling back. Now let's see what happens when I fully engage on the clutch. You see that? You guys saw that? So when it's not in the friction zone where it starts to engage, it starts to roll back. I'm gonna do it one more time. I'm gonna go ahead and fully engage, fully pull the clutch, and now I'm falling back. And I know this is nerve-wracking. I know from experience. I know it's just something that we're all kind of scared of. We see we see a hill and we're like, holy crap, please don't turn red, please don't turn red. We're talking about the light, because we know if we're stuck at the light, we don't know if we're going to be able to, you know, get out of this situation that we're in. And I know some of the states that don't have lane splitting or anything like that, so you will have to be placed where you're going to be waiting on the uphill. So like I mentioned, with Harley-Davidson's a lot easier, mainly because of that friction zone. It starts to engage. You could, once you get familiar with the friction zone and the bike and everything else, you know, you won't have to be worried about having it in the first gear. I mean, it's helpful. You could do that, but it's not going to be necessary. Now, this other method right here, I don't have it engaged. It's in neutral, and I'm relying on the brake on the uphill. So once that light turns green, drop it in first, and then give yourself a little bit. You know, you see that? I'm already used to the friction zone. I already know where it's at. It's about 60%, and I'm ready to go. See right here, rolling back. I don't even do that. Just kind of get it there, and look it. I'm ready to go. My hands off the brake, and I'm ready, you know, going. So it's just something that you're gonna have to practice.
Talking about practice.
It's something that you're gonna have to practice and get used to. And eventually it's gonna be muscle memory. You're not gonna have to worry about it too much. You're not gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be in the back of your head anymore. Once you start, you know, getting out there and riding, and once you really start to feel the friction zone and everything else. Now that we discussed, I believe that's the most difficult aspect of riding a motorcycle, or, you know, or driving a car or whatever, is that, like I said, that takeoff and that uphill. We're gonna go over here onto another uphill, and I'm gonna show you once again. I know this hill is gonna be a lot more steeper than that last one, but it's gonna be the same practice. It's gonna be the same technique. And like I mentioned, just take time. Like I mentioned, it just takes time, guys. You just gotta you know, you just got to get out there and ride and improve your skill of, you know, riding the bike. Now, like I mentioned, on the uphill, I'm on an uphill right now, and like I mentioned, you always want to shift at a higher RPM, mainly because you're fighting against gravity and you're going up against, you know, the weight, everything else on the bike. Now this hill, it's steeper than that last one we were in, but it's going to be the same technique. Like I mentioned, you could put it on that first gear. Now this one, because the hill's a lot steeper, you have to give it some gas. It's not gonna hold its own on the uphill. So you feel that right there? I'm giving it some gas, and now you could do that right there. Now, if you're on a steep hill like this, it's going to be very difficult. The bike itself, it's not going to be able to maintain its RPM, its running, its weight. It's not going to be able to maintain this level of steepness, so you are going to have to give it some gas. And it's going to be the same technique. You're going to have to get it in that friction zone and then just give it a little bit of gas. Not too much. You don't want to burn the clutch. All right, so let's go ahead and, did you hear that? How I kind of wanted to, you know, turn itself off? Now we're giving a little bit of gas and we're engaging in the friction zone just right here. All right, this is the sweet spot right here. A little bit of gas, a little bit of friction, and you can maintain it while the light turns green. But you know, no gas, it's gonna shut off. So let's go ahead and get going. You want to go higher RPM before you shift onto the second gear. We're at 3,000. Now we shifted. All right, let's get into shifting gears. When you're shifting gears, you always want to pull on the clutch and then shift, release, and give it power at the same time. You could do that. It's just easier when you're not in the first gear, mainly because you're not going to stall the bike. So let's get into the shifting. Once again, we are now on the level on gear number 3. We're in gear number 3, and not all, I mean, this is my first bike owning a gear indicator on the bike. I've always ridden bikes that you just have to feel the bike. You feel the bike and you know what gear you're on, and that just takes with practice and the sound of the RPM. The higher the RPM, and depending on the miles, the higher the RPM and depending on the miles per hour, that will kind of give you a hint on where you're at depending on the model. But some of the newer bikes, some of the other bikes, some of the metric bikes, they do have a gear indicator. Like I mentioned, this is my first gear indicator motorcycle, and I rarely look at the gear indicator. I kind of already know from experience where I'm at. You could perfectly ride those other bikes without gear indicators. It's not necessary, and it's not mandatory to kind of get to know or how to, you know, start riding a bike. All right, once again, we're going to get into shifting gears once again. Now this is a lot easier. As you can see, letting go of the friction, the clutch, pull that in. Now I'm in the second gear. It's a lot easier, like I said. Pull it in, shift, upshift. Like I mentioned, when it comes to bikes, you always have that one, your first gear, then it's your neutral, then it's your second, third, fourth, and fifth, and if you have a sixth gear, then you know it's there too. Pull the clutch, shift into second. That's the thing. You do a full shift from 1 to 2, it'll jump you into the second gear. If you do a mid or a light press of the shifter to your second, then you will be put into neutral. It will put you in neutral, so you have to do a full shift on you know, with your foot. You do have to do a full shift, or else it's going to put you in neutral. And you will know when it's in neutral. Like I mentioned, you'll have that green light, or you'll have that rev, that the engine rev's going to go up without you necessarily knowing. It's like, oh, what's going on? How come I'm not engaging? And that's because you're in the neutral. So now, If you do accidentally shift into neutral, don't be too alarmed. Don't be worried about it. Just go ahead and pull that clutch in again, and then shift into the second gear. It's not gonna break the bike. It's not, like I said, it's not gonna stall on you, because once you're at 5 to 10 miles per hour, the bike's not gonna stall out anymore. There is some other issues that you might run into, grinding or anything like that, but let's just focus on riding the bike. Alright, so let's say you're going, you got that friction zone, and then you don't fully, you hear that? That's when you know you went into neutral, and that's pretty much it. As you can see, if that happens, don't be alarmed, don't worry, it's gonna be okay. Just go ahead and pull that clutch in, and then just kick that shifter into gear. That's it. You don't have to worry about it. I sometimes accidentally still shift into neutral. I think it's mainly because I'm just relaxed. I don't know. I mean, it happens, but it rarely happens. You just have to do a full kick into the second gear, and it happens to everybody. So let's go ahead and do that again. I'm riding along. I hear the RPM 3000, and I'm gonna go ahead and shift, and then I'm engaging. You see how it's not going, and it's revving up. Go ahead and pull that clutch, kick it into second, and then just engage. That's it. 3000 RPM, pull the clutch, kick it into third gear. Once again, 3000 RPM, pull the clutch, kick it into fourth, and now you're riding a motorcycle. Simple. It's not too difficult. You guys just got to get out there, get your practice in, get familiar with the friction zone. I know it's gonna be a little scary, getting out there, but like I mentioned, once you get the hang of it, and once you start putting some miles on the bike, you're gonna start. It's gonna be muscle memory. It's gonna be easy. Let's just finish the video here. I think that's a good introduction. I got some pretty good camera angles. You guys should be able to get a good idea on how to ride a bike.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.
So you know what? Just stay out there, stay safe. Life's a risk. Get out there and ride. Later.